At dawn, he stacked every gold bar in town square and set them ablaze. The people of Redemption Flats woke to smoke rising like judgment itself, thick, black, carrying the stench of burning wealth and melting dreams. They stumbled from their homes in night clothes and work boots, rubbing sleep from their eyes, only to find Samuel Harrow standing beside an inferno of his own making. 300 pounds of gold. Every bar from his vault, the town's entire savings, deposits from ranchers, widows, miners who'd broken their backs for every ounce, all of it melting into rivers of liquid fire. Women screamed. Men rushed forward with buckets, but Harrow raised a pistol skyward and fired once. The shot cracked across the plains like lightning splitting an ancient tree. "Let it burn," he said. His voice was steady, cold. "Let it all burn." They found a leather journal near the flames that morning, singed at the edges. Inside, a single photograph. A young girl in a white dress, holding wildflowers. On the back, written in faded ink, "Forgive me, Father." But the story behind that photograph began 10 years earlier, in 1883, when Samuel Harrow first arrived in Redemption Flats with a strong box, a silver pocket watch, and a secret that one day would consume him whole.
Redemption Flats sat at the edge of nowhere, a cluster of weathered buildings pressed against the Colorado plains like prayers whispered into the wind. Dust hung in the air, permanent as grief. The saloon doors creaked on rusted hinges. Telegraph wires hummed their lonely songs above Main Street. Samuel Harrow arrived on the afternoon train in October, wearing an Eastern suit too clean for the West and carrying a leather case that gleamed in the failing sun. He was 32 years old, with careful eyes and hands that had never known honest labor. The townspeople watched him rent the old assayer's office, watched him hang a sign, "Harrow and Sons Bank." There were no sons. There never had been. "You come from money?" asked Ezra Cole, the town's blacksmith, a man whose arms were thick as railroad ties. "I come from back east," Harrow replied, which wasn't an answer at all. But his money was real enough. He offered fair rates, kept meticulous ledgers. Within a year, every rancher, every widow, every struggling homesteader had entrusted their futures to Samuel Harrow's vault. He became the town's spine, the man who held everything together. Only Reverend Thomas noticed the way Harrow never entered the church, the way he flinched when children laughed, the way he kept that silver pocket watch chained to his vest but never opened it. "A man who won't look at time is a man running from it," the Reverend said one evening. Harrow's office sat above the bank. Through the window, lamplight burned late into every night. Sometimes, if you passed after midnight, you could hear him, the scratch of pen on paper, over and over, like a man trying to write his way out of hell. The townspeople whispered. Who was he writing to? What was he running from? And why did he keep that photograph locked in his desk drawer, the one of the girl with wildflowers? The truth began to surface on a November night in 1892, when a prairie storm rolled in like God's own fury. Lightning split the sky, rain hammered the tin roofs of Redemption Flats, and in the flickering candlelight of Harrow's office, a young boy named Thomas Cole, Ezra's son, stood dripping wet, shivering, holding a telegram. "Mr. Harrow, sir, from back east. The operator said it was urgent." Harrow's hands trembled as he took it. He read it once, twice, then he crumpled it slowly, like crushing a living thing. The boy lingered, You all right, Mr. Harrow?" For a long moment, Samuel Harrow just stared at the rain-streaked window. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "You ever carry something so heavy, son, that you forget what it felt like to stand up straight?" Thomas didn't understand. He was only 12. Harrow opened his desk drawer, pulled out the photograph. The girl with wildflowers stared back, frozen in sunlight, smiling, forever young. "Her name was Catherine. She was my daughter," Harrow said. The rain drummed. The candle flickered. 10 years ago, I was a different man, a banker in Philadelphia, successful, respected. His jaw tightened, and greedy. He told the boy about the investment scheme, how he'd promised impossible returns, how he'd taken money from working families, immigrants, laborers, people who trusted him with their children's futures, how he'd gambled it all on railroad stocks that collapsed overnight. 23 families lost everything, Harrow whispered. One of them was a widow named Evelyn March. She had a daughter, Catherine's age, 8 years old. Thunder rolled across the plains. That girl's name was Anna. When Mrs. March lost everything, she couldn't bear it. She took her own life. And Anna died of fever in the poorhouse 3 months later. No money for a doctor, no money for medicine. Thomas stood frozen, rain still dripping from his coat. I fled, changed my name, came west with the money I'd hidden away, started over. Harrow touched the photograph. But Catherine, she wrote me one letter before she died of scarlet fever. She'd heard the rumors, knew what I'd done. He turned the photograph over. The words were burned into memory. "Forgive me, Father. I cannot carry your shame any longer. She was 12 years old, and I killed her, not with fever, with shame." The candle guttered. Outside, the storm raged like something alive. That telegram. They found me. The authorities. They're coming to arrest me. "What will you do?" Thomas whispered. Harrow looked at the ledgers on his desk. 10 years of careful records. Every deposit, every life he'd been entrusted with. "Something I should have done a long time ago, son. Something right."
At dawn, he stacked every gold bar in town square and set 'em ablaze. The entire town gathered, 300 souls standing in a circle around the impossible sight. The flames rose 10 feet high, fed by crates and timber Harrow had piled beneath the gold. The heat was tremendous, the light blinding. Marshal Davis pushed through the crowd, hand on his revolver. "Harrow, what in God's name?" "It's blood money," Harrow said. His face was ash-streaked, eyes red from smoke and something deeper. "All of it. I built this bank with stolen wealth, money taken from families back east, money that cost lives." The crowd murmured, shifted. "Every dollar you deposited," Harrow continued, his voice rising, "I matched from my own reserves. Your money, your real money, is in the vault, untouched. But this," he gestured to the melting gold, "this is what I brought from Philadelphia. This is the fortune I built on broken backs and dead children." Ezra Cole stepped forward. "You're saying our savings are safe?" "Safe in the vault. Every cent accounted for. I spent 10 years repaying what I stole, penny by penny, sacrifice by sacrifice. This gold was all that remained of my original sin." A woman's voice cut through the crowd. "Then why burn it? Why not return it?" Harrow pulled out the photograph, held it high enough for all to see. "Because there's no one left to return it to. Anna March died in a poorhouse. Her mother is gone. The other families scattered to the winds. His voice cracked. I can't bring 'em back. Can't undo what I've done, but I can make sure this cursed gold never hurts another soul. Let it burn. Let it be witnessed. Let it be remembered that Samuel Harrow finally chose something other than his own damned survival. The marshal lowered his gun. The townspeople stood silent, and as the sun climbed higher over Redemption Flats, the gold melted into the earth, a scar in the town square that would never fade. They arrested Samuel Harrow that afternoon. He didn't resist, didn't ask for mercy. He simply handed Reverend Thomas the keys to the bank vault and walked to the waiting marshal with his head high for the first time in a decade. The ledgers are in order, he told the townspeople as they shackled him. Every deposit recorded, every family accounted for. I've arranged for the bank to be managed by the Reverend until you elect a new trustee. Ezra Cole stepped forward. Harrow, what you did back east was wrong. What you did here, he struggled for words. I don't know if it makes up for it, but it meant something. Harrow smiled that sad smile. It meant I finally stopped running. They took him away on the evening train. The townspeople gathered at the station, not to jeer, but to watch. Some out of curiosity, others out of something closer to respect. Young Thomas Cole stood with his father, watching the train disappear into the amber distance. Will we see him again, son? I don't know, son. Do you think God will forgive him? Ezra looked at the horizon where smoke still rose from the melted gold. I think he finally learned to forgive himself, and maybe that's all any of us can hope for. 3 years later, they received word that Samuel Harrow had died in a prison in Denver. He'd spent his final years teaching other inmates to read and write. His body was returned to Redemption Flats at his request. They buried him in the cemetery on the hill, near the spot where wildflowers grow in spring. The scar in the town square remained, a patch of earth where nothing would ever grow again, stained black by melted gold and something heavier. On quiet mornings, when the wind sweeps across the Colorado plains, they say you can still smell smoke rising from that spot. A reminder, a warning, a prayer. The West keeps its secrets, but it also keeps its debts. They say the West keeps its secrets. Every scar, every promise, every whispered trail. Some rode for vengeance, others for love, but a few just rode to find peace beneath the dying sun. Samuel Harrow rode until the weight finally broke him, and in that breaking, maybe, just maybe, he found something like redemption. Would you have done the same? The land remembers, the wind remembers, and somewhere in Redemption Flats, a photograph burns eternal in memory. A young girl holding wildflowers, forever forgiving her father. Subscribe for more tales from Whispering Trails, under the Wild West limits.